And we're starting our recording. I'll go ahead and read the script. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. And we've got entire board here. First item is discussing the formal agenda. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the agenda? Any comments, questions, changes? Nope. Okay, fantastic. We'll move on to our first topic this evening, which is libraries reading outreach in Clatson County. And that's the ROCC program, page 3 of our agenda. We have 5 minutes assigned to this. And I see we have Jimmy Pearson and Kelly Knutson here. I'll pass it off to Jimmy.
Hi, Mr. Chair, thank you, and commissioners, welcome. So my name is Jimmy Pearson. I'm the library director in Astoria. I'm also this year's chair for the ROCC nonprofit that we are part of. We also have Esther Moberg, the director in Seaside, Kelly Knutson, and I'm going to introduce Jessica Jacobson, who is our new coordinator, and she's going to take it from here. We really appreciate your support for this. We're going to give you a quick update and a briefing, and feel free to afterwards ask any questions that you may have. Thank you. Jessica, it's your show.
Thank you, Jimmy. Hello, I am the Reading Outreach Coordinator for Libraries ROC, and just a reminder or maybe new info of what ROC is. As you know, we have many rural and unincorporated areas of the county. And the residents in those areas do have to pay a yearly fee if they would like to have a library card at any one of the 3 city libraries. So because of this, the 3 libraries did not want this to be a barrier to the children's access to the library. So they created Libraries ROC to give free library cards to all children who want them, regardless of where they live in the county. So currently we estimate there's about 3,900 children that are in those unincorporated and rural areas. And we currently have 2,900 active ROC cards. So that's pretty exciting. And we're actually adding those as we speak. Those numbers have gone up just in the last few weeks. We have new cards. Just a little bit about what I've been up to and kind of what ROC's been up to just recently. I've been doing school visits. I went out to Jewel and Napa schools, and I've been working with both of the youth librarians in those schools. First of all, to make sure that any kid that wants a ROC card has one. And so just doing a little bit of a card drive, as we would call it. And then also their access to the services. So, right, we have a card now. Now, how do we access what the library has to offer? And as you all know, transportation can be a barrier to our families that live in our rural areas. So one of the things I've been doing is making sure that the librarians and the teachers know about our digital ebooks and our audiobooks that can be checked out from all 3 libraries. And I want to make sure they know how to access those. So there is an app that you can download. There's a little bit of a process, but once you're in and you know how to do it, you're good to go. And so that would provide easy access for our families that just can't make it into a city library, but they can still have library books. I've also been promoting our summer reading program. That's kicking off June 1st. And the theme is Read Beyond the Beaten Path, and it's a camp theme. So I've been working with the youth librarians at Astoria, Seaside, and Warrenton to coordinate that and get that going. And so I promoted that. I went into Napa and Jewel and brought them posters and flyers, and then I did some classroom visits. And that's another access issue, I guess, that comes up is how can those kiddos still be a part of this summer reading program, even if they can't get to one of the city libraries. So we bring the signups and reading logs to them. So they do not have to come into a library to get signed up. They can just, like, on June 1st, start reading. And then I have coordinated with Napa to go out to, I'll be going to Two Old Goats at the end of June and bringing the free books to the kids in Napa. So if they have a reading log filled out by the end of June, they can come there and I will hand them a free book and have some fun little crafts and things for them to do. I'll also go back out there in August during the summer school program that they're going to have at the school. So any kids who have another one to turn in, or they didn't get to turn one in June, they will get that opportunity. And the librarian in Jewel, super awesome. She's super dedicated to the kids and making sure that they're reading all year long. So they're in school a little bit longer than the rest of the county schools. And so she'll be handing out free books that we purchased and gave to her. She'll be handing those out because they don't get out to almost the end of June. And then again, when they come back in August, they will get free books. So we did provide both Jewel and Napa's their library collection. We provided over $500 worth of books to each school to beef up that library collection. Again, that's that access, right? So they can't get out of the community. Like, let's make sure that their school library is really rich and has a lot to offer. And then, yeah, I think the best part for me was getting into classrooms. I have, my background is that I've spent the last 20 years as an educator. And so getting into schools and now that they're opening up a little bit more and meeting with kids, I had one kindergartner who said to me, first of all, they wanted me to know that they love books. They love reading, they love books. And then they asked me, are you ever going to build a library here in Oregon? And I knew what she meant. I knew that she meant, are you going to build a library here where I live? Right. And so I clarified with her and she said, yes, right here, like by my house, because I love to read. Right. And so, it was nice to tell her, like, I will be coming out here and I will be bringing books and, you bring that reading log. And I guess that's kind of been my takeaway after going into both of those communities, is that there really is a desire and a need for access to libraries. It was, even if it's Two Old Goats saying, yeah, come out here. And, their one employee, Austin, out there was like, I love to read. I was a voracious reader. I would have loved to have had a library card, for free through ROC. I would have loved to have access to all those books. The principal at Napa is very interested in our vending machines. So that's also something really cool to update you on, is that we did get a grant that will provide us with funds to purchase 2 vending machines. And they are just exactly what they sound like, but they're for books. So the kids can put a book on hold. I'd bring them out and put them or someone would out into the vending machine, and the kids put in their number and the book drops like a bag of chips. And then there would be a return box next to that. So the principal was like all about it. Yes, we don't have a lot of space, but we will find space to put something like that. So again, I just think, just meeting and going out into that community, that's really like what I took away from it.
So commissioners, I know that we're pulling short on time or whatever. And I know as an elected official myself, I like to keep meetings on time. So one of the things that we've been bringing to your attention and continue to bring it before you is there's a lot of growth opportunity within the rural areas of the county. And so we're starting to bear fruit. And so we're starting to generate the excitement in the different locations. The vending machines are going to be the next step. And anything that we can do to support rural library potential users has been what our focus has been. So in the 3 libraries, you can now use your library card in all 3 libraries. So we're acting like Multnomah County as far as a system, but we're still very separate, distinct buildings. But it is powerful when you can, as a Clatson County resident, walk into one of the public libraries and use your card. And that's where your help has been coming from. We had a meeting with Dawn a couple of years ago before COVID. So anything that we can do to expand those services, huge for the kids, especially to help them not drop off during the non-school year, because that's important that they can continue to see the kids that read succeed, and then they become county commissioners. If I have nothing else for my fellow library directors, subject to your questions.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, Jessica. And as a parent to two young kiddos that loves all three of your libraries, this is a terrific program. I'm glad to see. I see we have a couple questions. Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Thompson.
Well, thank you. My Aunt Marion, the librarian, she really was even before the song happened. We're born and bred like that. So the Community College Foundation does a lot of fundraising for the community college students. Is there something comparable that you have? I mean, lacking Andrew Carnegie to come in and establish Carnegie libraries the way we used to have in the mid. How do you get angels, lots and lots of angels coming to support you besides what we're able to do?
Esther, you're muted.
So we actually do have some angels. We have an endowment for Libraries Reading Outreach. It's called the Val Winstanley and Francine Reingold Endowment. And people are giving to that. It has about $42,000 in it currently. It's through the Oregon Community Foundation. So we do continue to ask people to give to that, and we are hoping to build that. And at some point, hopefully that will support the entire program and even maybe help to build a couple libraries someday. So we do have some angels. We're working toward that. We did also just receive a grant for $40,000. They talked about one piece of that, which was the book vending machines. We're also getting a new website for Libraries Rock. We're getting some book drops put in Warrenton for book return, and we're working for some other pieces with the rural children to beef up some of what we're currently doing. So using money that you're giving us, we're also leveraging grant funding, and we're also asking community donations to help support as well.
Good
Fantastic.
answer. I'm not surprised. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Esther. Commissioner Banks and then Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks.
We have a really heavy homeschool population out here in Napa who isn't very connected to our school district. How can homeschool students and homeschool children go through this process? Do they just show up to the library?
Yeah, so they can show up to the library. I'm also so Two Old Goats does have that community, the small like lending library, community library, and I've actually been talking with Austin and Patrick there about the children's section of that. So we've actually offered to buy some new books to add to that collection. Austin told me some homeschool families do use that. And so we do recognize that it is hard to kind of track down our homeschool families, right? Because we typically go for these kind of government type agencies, but that I could absolutely leave Rock registration applications at Two Old Goats if they would be okay with that, which I think they would, so that at least that piece is done, and I can certainly pick those up too if they have them, and we can get cards made and numbers up. So
I have to just give a shout out to Granny Patty and to Austin and Patrick because they started that lending library years ago. And it's been just a wonderful community outreach for us. And then my second comment was just kind of an accolade. I've been hearing a lot about a particular librarian, and her name is Courtney. And I think she works for Warrenton. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. It doesn't appear that she's on here tonight, but if you guys could share with her that news on the street is she's doing a good job.
We will pass that on.
She is doing a great job. She is. Yes. Thank you. I will let her know.
Yep.
Commissioner,
My
also,
girls love Courtney.
Nice. Commissioner, one thing that we're also throwing around sometimes is there used to be a bookmobile back in the 40s, which was really popular in the county. And that's something that we've looked at, is there a grant opportunity? Is there funding from the county? Like what would it take to put a bookmobile out in the rural areas a couple times a week? So lots of things that we can do to leverage and get the kids access to the materials and their books.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, thank you. It breaks my heart to live in a county where anybody has to pay for a library card. This is so un-American to me. Has there ever been any economic analysis done about what it would take for us to be able to give every resident, adult and child in the county, access to all of our libraries. Has that ever happened? Maybe Monica or somebody whose history goes back farther knows about that. But has that ever been looked at?
If I can answer, they've done an analysis at least 5 times. And each time voters have said, and this is a while back, I think the last one was done early 2000s. Each time voters have said they were not willing or ready to do an entire countywide district. I do believe there is an opportunity, and I'm actually I looked at a grant this year. I'm actually looking at it for next year. I tried to throw it into our current grant, and they said, no, this is a separate thing. I'm actually going to ask for a state grant next year to look into a proposal again of what it would take, what that economic impact would be, and also look at exactly which areas are interested and willing in having a district and looking at that tax funding, and letting the county then know what the results of that would be. I don't think it would be necessarily exactly the entire county, but it would be those areas, at least to start, that would be interested in having those support services and library.
Could I, Chair Quayla, can I say?
Yes.
I'm a huge, having lived in Multnomah County and in Pacific County, I'm a huge fan of county-wide libraries. But if it's not feasible in terms of basically creating an LID to tax people for it, are there other things that we could explore?
Definitely. There's definitely special districts. There's other options that could be a potential, looking at the way our current ratios are, and then looking at, what those boundaries drawn would look like, and then where funding would come from. So I would actually like to get a grant to pull in somebody that could do that entire analysis, the entire scope, and then present several different options to look at as far as opportunities.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Toyoka has a question, and we do have to move on. We have 3 other items on our work session. So Commissioner Toyoka.
Oh, thank you very much. And I just wanted to say that it's funny because we, discussed this topic with a few people, and they're like, "What do you need a library for? We got the internet." And I just kind of laugh at them and say, if you have young children, or if you have, school-age children, especially in the summertime, there's that huge drop-off potential. And I have my wife and I, we have a special needs daughter, and having her ability to go to the library, have that resource, have that facility is huge. And it prevents a huge drop off during the summer when she doesn't have that full-time support at school. Even the other kids, just to have the location, have the support, have the facilities available is incredibly helpful during the summer. There's no drop off when they get back to school. So I appreciate that program very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka. Completely agree with you. We'll have to move on to our next item, but thank you, Esther, Jessica, Kelly, Jimmy. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
work you're doing.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing it with us.
Yep, thank you.
Next item is the Clatson County 4-H and Extension Service District Intergovernmental Agreement with OSU. It's on page 5 of our agenda. We have 5 minutes scheduled for this. I'll turn it over to Monica Steele, our Assistant County Manager.
Thank you, Chair. So as the governing body of the 4-H and Extension District, we come before your board because we are in the 5th year of our current IGA with OSU to provide the educational program and information outreach to residents of the county. And since it is the final year, we wanted to request another 5-year IGA with OSU to continue to provide these services. The revenues for the district are collected through property taxes, timber sales, and miscellaneous grants. The way that the structure currently exists is that we pay OSU on a quarterly basis. And the first 3 quarters are based off of the total budgeted expenditures, excluding contingency. And then that 4th quarter payment is just what the actual total expenditures were. And so typically that 4th quarter is under what was budgeted, because there's typically savings that are realized. And so we would be continuing with the same process moving forward in this next 5-year IGA. Any questions?
Not seeing any. Any questions, comments? Great. Thumbs up. Everybody's got a thumbs up. So fantastic. Thank you, Monica.
Great, thanks. This will be coming before your board as a consent calendar item at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the Habitat Conservation Plan, National Environmental Policy Act comment period. And I will turn it over to our county manager, Don Boone.
Thank you, Chair Quayla, members of the board. I did want to mention that Alan Rapplier is also on the call today. He'll be sitting in as our county counsel as Joanna's on vacation. Unfortunately, he can't, his video is not working right now, so we won't get the pleasure of seeing him, but we know that he's there. So, and you may hear him at some point. So, but I do want to talk.
Am I testing my audio? Is my audio working?
You are.
It is.
Okay, good.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I needed. Sorry.
At least we got half of it done. So thank you, Alan. So I did want to talk about the Habitat Conservation Plan. We are in a public comment period, which is part of the NEPA process, and that will be culminating really May 31st. And so staff has put together a draft letter that really deals with the financial implications for the county. That draft was shared with the board members. When we wrote that draft, really what the goal was to write something that focused on the financial implications and could be something that the Board of Commissioners and the sheriff and the district attorney could all sign together, because as we know, when you lose discretionary revenues and some of these dedicated revenues, it truly impacts every part of the organization. So I was going to walk through a little bit about what the HCP impacts are on our timber revenues. So Teresa, if you can go. This slide shows the total amount of timber revenues that were received by all of the Clatson County taxing jurisdictions over the last 5-year period where we had actual. So it was fiscal year 16-17 through fiscal year 2021. The first column of numbers just shows you what every taxing jurisdiction received, annual average. And so you have $24.236 million that has been brought in to these taxing jurisdictions every year. Just to give you a little reference point, that's the size of the county's current general fund revenues. So when you think about the general fund revenues that are substantially funding this organization, that's the magnitude of the funds that are coming from timber into Clatson County governments every year. And so the big ones obviously are school districts, and the county. A lot of smaller districts though also receive monies, and that includes rural fire protection districts, Sunset Empire Transportation, Sunset Parks and Rec, Clatson Care, Clatson Community College. Just a lot of impacts for really every form of government. And so in the last column, it just depicts what a 30% reduction would be from those revenues. And so it is possible that the HCP could actually reduce timber revenues by, some estimates are up to 38%, but we use 30% to be a little bit more conservative. But you can extrapolate it. If it turned out to be 38%, then these would be lower numbers. But if you assume 30%, that would be almost $7.3 million less revenue that's going to be coming into these Clatson County jurisdictions. So if you go to the next slide. So this slide just shows that same 5-year time period for Clatson County. On an annualized basis, we've been receiving about $4.18 million into the general fund, 1.2 into law enforcement, 1.7 in road district, state timber law, lands enforcement, 217 extension, and 4-H around the $90,000 mark. So a total average over that 5-year period annually is almost $8.6 million. So that's what the county receives currently. Last slide, Teresa. So this slide just shows you that what the projected revenue loss would be at that 30% estimate, and what percent of the revenues that go into these discrete funds. And so as an example, for the general fund, a 30% loss would be just roughly $1.5 million. And that represents a 7% reduction in general fund revenues. So in rural law enforcement, it'd be $372,000, which represents a 13% reduction in rural law enforcement revenues. And so you can read the rest of the table. Not surprisingly, the state timber lands enforcement, because the only revenue source is the timber revenues. A 30% hit is a 30% hit roughly. So these are big numbers. And once we started looking at them, we've had conversations, with the other elected officials, and we just went through a budget process. And, these numbers would make it very difficult for the county to maintain service levels and to maintain staffing levels. And so that's what the real genesis of the letter as part of the public comment period. So we took, some time and really worked through what the implications were per fund. And we've shared that draft with the sheriff and the district attorney, and they both have signed off on it also. And so we just wanted to have a conversation, present this information, and then answer any questions that your board may have about the information or the letter itself. And then if we can get some consensus on the letter, then the plan would be to submit that by the end of the week into the NEPA process and share it with ODF. So that's all that I have, Chair, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, County Manager. Any questions, comments? I can't see everybody. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Well, I appreciate the staff's work in presenting these daunting data sets for us. I've been listening to Commissioner Bangs express her concerns at the Council of Forest Trust Lands, and she's been clear, and she has repeated her point in order to emphasize it. I'm speaking tonight as an economically responsible environmentalist. I want to see the environment healed and protected. If we don't have the money to provide county services, we're out of balance. We're underwater. We don't have enough to do what we need to do already. And this would simply make a bad situation worse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Bangs.
I think the most nauseating part of this conversation came out in a May 10th meeting when an ODF employee confirmed that they provided themselves wiggle room within the HCAs, which basically just means that they padded it and gave away extra acres. And what I saw that as was they were giving away extra jobs, and job loss that doesn't need to happen was basically written into the plan so that they could have wiggle room. And for me, I've been really upfront from the beginning that I I fully, support the idea of an HCP. I get that it could be very positive in actuality, but this particular one is going to be a gut punch, and we're going to lose beds at Clatson Care, jobs. So this has been a difficult conversation, and I've been grateful to have Commissioner Thompson in those meetings with me. She's basically fully provided support and follow-up to the statements. And I think the other frustration that I'm finding in this entire plan, which will also go into my personal public comment, is the modeling that they use to create the data that they used for comparison was a flawed modeling process. And so the basis of all of their information is flawed. And it was pointed out by services in the first, 60 to 100 pages. I know I'll quote what page numbers in my personal public statement, but yeah, this has been rough. And so whatever we can do as a county to weigh in and hopefully highlight how rough that this is going to be would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Appreciate your representation at CFPLC and Commissioner Thompson as well. I completely agree. This is well done, County Manager Boone. And this is a no-brainer in my book. You need to be fiscally responsible in sending this and keeping our seat at the table. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I think that maybe we need to look at this whole issue as an opportunity. I think that the whole construction of the Forest Trust land, I don't know what to call it, almost like a rebate, the disbursement of funds to so many components of local government in rural counties. I think it was a bad deal from the get-go. And it's a really lousy way to fund local services. And I would love to see us work with the upcoming long session to work on some state programs that can begin to make us whole without sacrificing our forest lands. And I hope that in our work with AOC and with other consultants, we can begin to make the point that so much of our service infrastructure is funded from timber dollars that are directly related to how much we cut, rather than to some other of the economic impacts, et cetera, in our communities. We don't ask our maritime industry, for instance, to give us a cut of their profits the way we do the timber industry. And so it looks to me as if we need to rethink the way that we are, well, that I'm not the only person who thinks this, obviously. And I think there's a lot of support in other counties to say, whoa, this is untenable. Let's go to the state and try to make a case for the fact that this is going to gut our local services, and that that's untenable. And so we have to come up with a way for the state to make us whole. I hope that this is a wonderful report. Incidentally, thank you so much. I found this just incredibly enlightening and important for us. But as I say, I think that we need to, instead of just fighting the HCP, I think we need to be concentrating our efforts on trying to simply constructively restructure the way our forest industries and perhaps other industries are paying for the local services that they too receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Bangs.
I just wanted to speak to the fact that our county is 87% forest lands. We're unique in the state regarding how much of our land base is locked up as forest, and as no other economic availability for us. As we go through land planning and we go through that comprehensive plan, it's abundantly clear that we are forests. And our community, almost 80 years ago, invested in an economic and environmental legacy. And I think, whereas other communities who clear cut their lands, they did not invest in that environmental and economic legacy. We chose, our ancestors, my husband's family, chose to replant and to create this glorious crop, this glorious forest that we have here, and to manage it with respect and to be good stewards of the land. And so I find it very sad that, we've had generations of folks here who have very successfully managed these lands in a wonderful way. I find it very sad that environmental and economic legacy is going to be removed from us. And so are the jobs that it provides. And so will the mills. And yeah, we don't request our fishermen to pay a similar, but this is our property. It's like telling Multnomah County, I'm sorry, Multnomah County, you can't find economic value off of 87% of your lands. And I would imagine Multnomah County would fight that tooth and nail if they were told that you will not be able to reap any benefits or rewards other than recreation. And so I think that the identity of our community is deeply tied into this forest. And so are the folks that we got generations of families. And so I don't want to go to the state and find an opt-out plan when our forests have been doing a great job supporting us. And we've been doing a great job supporting the environment. So I guess, I don't support ODF asking the general fund for money for recreation. They've been doing a good enough job with their tree harvests to pay for recreation. So I also don't support them going to the general fund to help pay their staff. They're the only state agency up until this point to actually have a profit. The only state agency. So I'm not interested in asking our taxpayers to shoulder the burden of what a state agency used to be able to shoulder. I don't think that that's fair, because that basically, when you ask the state to solve the problem, they are going to turn around and put their hand out to the taxpayer to help them solve the problem. And so it will become our burden when we're already burdened with job loss. So I guess I am very passionate about this topic. I'll let Commissioner Toyoka speak.
Well, just one second. I think we're talking on some broader issues here, and I think I anticipate that we'll have that opportunity to talk about at another time and place, some of these bigger picture issues. This is the time where we're talking about this letter, and this is an HCP comment period for NEPA. So I think anyway, I'll let Commissioner Toyoka speak.
Well, just to dovetailing on Commissioner Banks, I appreciate the letter because it does highlight the economic impact, especially for a rural county such as us. I don't think some of the urban centers understand the impacts and how significant that would affect our county. But, and I admit I am not a forest engineer. I don't have that expertise, but as I read all the documents and I read everything about our HCP, I just see a document that's agenda driven and not necessarily factual or scientific driven. And I think our next step after we talk about, the fiscal impacts is, let's go back to their, what's their methodology? How are they deriving to their HCB how do they justify some of these actions? I said, if the layman can look at it and have very serious questions, I think someone who's, expertise in that field should actually answer our questions and tell us how they derived at that, but there's some of their conclusions to come to this HCP, because it just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Tuiaka. Again, this letter is just kind of outlining the impacts that will be felt in Clatson County. And I appreciate the support. It seems like we've got pretty broad support for sending this letter. Commissioner Thompson?
I want to sign the letter, sir.
So Chair Quayla, members of the board, if I can just summarize it, it looks like there's agreement with the letter. And I know, as I mentioned earlier, that Sheriff Phillips and Ron Brown, the district attorney, also support that. So Teresa will be getting that letter finalized. We'll be sure to distribute it to each of you. And we will get that into the NEPA portal. So thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, County Manager. The next item on the agenda is the proposed fee schedule adjustments for Clatson County to be implemented on July 1st, 2022. And Jennifer Carlson, our Budget and Finance Manager, is here. I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Teresa, do I have the ability? Oh, there it is. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this evening we'll run through the changes staff are recommending to the county-wide fee schedule for the 22-23 fiscal year. The need for these adjustments within each department is a result of departmental evaluation of the existing fees and whether the existing fees are still explicable, if there's a need for any new fees as a result of new services, and whether the existing fees are covering the cost to provide the service. Every few years, we ask departments to do a more thorough analysis of their fees, where they're asked to evaluate based on the cost of the FTE providing the service, the cost of any materials, and also a comparison to other jurisdictions. Also, in efforts to maximize and diversify the county's revenues, departments within the county must charge fees to cover the cost of services for private benefits as much as possible. So I thought I would just put this in a quick PowerPoint rather than going through the large document. So these fees that we're proposing would be effective July 1st, 2022. Let's see. And the first changes that we have are on page 16 under animal control. They're asking to add a couple fees for large and small trap deposits. And then they're also asking to increase fees for the adoption fees and owner release to shelter fees. Moving on to assessors, they're adding fees for a neighboring notification fee for $100 and a senior deferral late fee filing fee, and that's set by statute. And then on building codes, which is pages 18 through 24, there are many adjustments to these fees. The last increase occurred in 2016 and since then has remained largely untouched. At this time, due to sharp increases in goods, materials, personnel expenses, and the building codes is requesting a 12% increase in fees, in addition to a 3% increase or a 3% technology fee to offset the cost of technology services. And this request to increase these fees is necessary to maintain current service levels. And then we've got the planning department on page 25 through 26, and they're asking to decrease a couple fees, which is the hearing officer planning commission decision to board of commissioners decreased from 3,170 to 1,600. And as a side note, this fee is only required if the board agrees to review appeal. And they're also asking to decrease the geologic hazard review from $440 to $85, and that is just to reflect the work that's being done. They're asking to increase the public works grading and drainage review from $70 to $150, and they're asking to remove the floodplain previously exempt activities fee. Information system is also asking to increase their fees just to cover the cost of the time of the personnel. And then public health is another big one where they're asking to increase a number of fees. This is just due to the fact that they did a very thorough audit of their fees this year. They did a real good job. And overall, they found that many of the fees are not covering their services, not close. So right now they're recommending a 10% increase to all the fees that fell well below the cost to provide those services. And then we've got the sheriff office parole and probation. They're asking to add a couple fees for lost and damaged equipment, a community service fee for a monthly community service fee, 2 additional types of drug testing fees and subsidy reimbursement fees. And the corrections division has asked to increase the work crew daily rate from 10 to 15 and add a certificate of sale. And finally, the public records research fees are just asking to update the research fee to a cost of $15 per 15 minutes or $60 an hour, and to add a county council record review fee. Any questions?
Any questions, Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, sir. I wonder, I appreciate making a more gradual increase in the health department fees. Should we expect to see those fees continue to increase over time until they reach actual costs?
Yeah, we'll take a look at them each year, and that is the plan, is to get them closer to the cost of the service.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? And the fees that were not directly outlined within your presentation, they are in the packet, is that correct? So we can see what that number
Yeah,
is.
everything's in the packet.
Yep.
I just did a brief overview in the presentation.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
We managed to get through that a lot faster than I expected, so we can take a few minutes and prepare for our regular session at 6 o'clock. See you in a bit. All right, looks like we've got 6 o'clock. Recording has started. And Commissioner Webb will, I'm sure, be joining us very soon. We'll go ahead and get started. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatson County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, can we have the roll call?
Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson,
I'm here.
Commissioner Toyoka,
Here?
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
James,
Here.
Thank you, Teresa. We've had an opportunity to review the agenda in our work session. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the agenda.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings, and we have one public hearing on the agenda this evening, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
no, there are not.
Okay. Thank you, clerk. We'll go ahead to the consent calendar. Is there any motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll start with our commissioner liaison reports. Start with Commissioner Thompson.
Okay, check it out. This is a Fishhawk Lake cap. The reason I have a Fishhawk Lake cap is because I was out at Fishhawk Lake. And if you want to read about what happened there, there was a lovely article on the front page of the Astorian yesterday. It's a wonderful community, and congratulations to them for coming together to preserve nature and to recover from a hard situation. Today was the State Emergency Response Commission meeting. I've been the vice chair of that body for 6 years now. You'll recall that now the state fire marshal has been under the Oregon State Police. Legislation has brought them out and made them a separate department. They're getting used to that. They're expanding. They're looking at a whole different set of rules, roles, and responsibilities. And so they're moving forward in that direction. I did raise the issue with them of the dilemma of our rural firefighters dealing with the unintended consequences of ballot measure 110. They appreciated that, but that's not the right venue to really be effective in it. I think we'll need to keep looking for that. Another thing that's happening tomorrow is that seismic rehabilitation grant program will make the allocations. And so I'm looking forward to participating in that activity. Tomorrow night is the Cedar Awards dinner. So we've been busy lately. So all of that's going on. That's all great. Jewel School on June 2nd, 6 to 8 p.m. What matters most to you about future development in rural Clatson County? Your voice counts. So good job for Oregon Kitchen Table working with our staff to get this out to everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing people there. The other thing I would add is if people want to come to the commissioner's office, I brought in art. I brought in Bob Tarr's photographs of Arch Cape. And it's really, it's to inspire us and to remember the rest of Clatson County. There's room on the walls for more if other commissioners want to bring in other artwork to inspire us and increase our effectiveness thereby. I think that's a good idea too. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I appreciate the art on the walls. I finally have won my battle with Spectrum, so I'm back online at home, but I have enjoyed going into that office. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have a hallelujah report. The Housing Authority has hired a new executive director, and she is spectacular. Her name is Elisa Gertler. I hope I'm not killing that. She has signed a contract and is going to start on June 27th. We are going to keep our interim director for a couple of months after she starts so that he can train her. Elisa is coming to us from Metro, where she was their housing director. And I think she's extremely well qualified as a housing expert. She's also a land use planner, but she doesn't have housing authority experience. And as I have painfully learned over the past almost 4 years, housing authority processes and funding are extremely complicated and governed almost entirely by HUD regulations that are often just really, really difficult to learn. But we're really excited. I think she's going to be terrific. She seems to be anxious to move here because she's kind of starting a new chapter in her life, and she would like to be able to really be in the community, which we desperately need for a housing authority director. So stay tuned for more good stuff about that. We're also about to have a groundbreaking for Trillium House, and to which I hope you have all already been invited. Other good news on the multi-county front is that after a lot of hard work, I have talked Greg Marl, who is the CEO of Burgerson Construction, which is primarily a maritime construction company, into joining the board of the Northwest the Northwest Oregon Workforce Board. And we're having our next meeting here in Astoria, which usually includes a tour of and presentations from Job Corps. And I'm hoping that we will be able to add to that some information and perhaps some touring of HIAC, WCT, and Burgerson in their big facility on Tongue Point, because it's a wonderful, wonderful example of our growing maritime industry and of our desperate need for more workers for that industry. So I think it's going to be fun it's always fun to be back in face-to-face, because one of the things I like about these multi-county face-to-face meetings is that we get to see what other counties are doing. And I'll be doing that also in June when when Commissioner Yamamoto in Tillamook County does his whirlwind come see what we've done with the estuary tour. And I'm looking forward to that as well. And Commissioner Quayla, you and I have got to sort out, I think, who's going to go to the OCZM meeting. It's in Brookings, unfortunately, but I feel like we really need to be there, so we'll work that out.
Yeah, we can talk offline on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Okay, I think that's it. Lots of good news. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the report. Commissioner Toyoka.
Well, good evening, everyone. Just want to say we had a planning commission interviews for members who want to be appointed to the planning commission, and seemingly, so it's a very valuable resource to have. Those individuals do a lot of work, seemingly very thankless job. So it's really refreshing to see so many people qualified, willing to put themselves out there for that planning commission. And hopefully, we've got a lot of issues up ahead. So looking forward to working with those new individuals on that, with that planning commission as we move forward. Went to a CEDAR meeting this week, and again, the topics are always growth in the county. How do we stimulate more business? But it always comes back to, where do they live? We can bring more employees here, but where are they going to stay? So we always talk about workforce housing and market-based housing. and I think everybody's really excited and anticipating looking at land use and zoning just to help with those issues, further discussions. Again, it's Thursday night, tomorrow night, we got the Cedar Awards. Looking forward to that. So hope to see some of you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka. Commissioner Banks.
I don't know if it's just me, but the last 2 weeks have been very busy. It started with a CFTLC meeting on the 13th, and the new district forester or state forester offered to get some of my questions answered. And so I have taken him up on that offer and submitted him pages actually of questions in hopes that someone will give me some answers. And so we'll see where that goes. He did send a response that stated that he would need about 2 weeks to go through the documents that I submitted, and we'll see if anything comes of it. But yeah, I have lots of questions. And as Commissioner Thompson can attest to. Anyhow, we moved into the next week, pretty much going to the countywide meeting. I'm so glad, the countywide and citywide meetings. I'm so glad that we were able to have that time together to discuss a problem that is, facing us in multiple conversations, and that's housing. I went to Commissioner Thompson supported Waters conversation and just had further conversation. And I like where that is going. I like the development of a potential database for us as a resource. And I hear the words carrying capacity more than once from these fellows. And I think that that's important, especially moving forward into our housing discussions. Then I've been doing some Northwest Senior and Disability Service budget work, and that will be ongoing through June, and moved into this week. And sadly, I couldn't get a substitute teacher in order to join Commissioner Quila at our childcare discussion. I will let him give a brief update, but we finally are seeing traction. I feel like we're seeing traction, and I'm actually very excited about the conversation that I had with Mark following. And sadly, I'm missing trees and taps tonight. The foresters are getting together at, I think, Bowie, and I was invited, and I was sorry, guys. I was a little bummed not to be able to join them. But yeah, no, things have been busy, and the school year is almost over. So there's a little bit of a cheer for me for that. I have 13 more teaching days before summer.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. As Commissioner Banks was alluding to, we did have a half-day session on Monday to talk about childcare in Clatson County. We had a very robust discussion and outlined a few action items that will be presented to this group on June 15th. And I also note that there is an opening within ESD for an early childhood professional development support specialist. And this would be a position that actually could help coach childcare providers and also answer questions through the childcare resources and referral lines. And that's something that's been open for a while. We really need to try to find someone to fill this position, because this could be very critical as one of this kind of leadership team that we would assemble as part of this plan. And the county ARPA funds will be utilized, as well as some funding from hospitals and other businesses within the county. I think it's going to be a good path forward. We had agreement from some very, Dan Gaffney has been working incredibly hard on this, as well as SBDC, Kevin Leahy, and others, and Eva Manderson with ESD. So I'm anxious to kind of get that kind of summarized into the commission for your review, and that'll be June 15th. And then one other item, I was given this today, that the USS Oregon will be commissioned in Connecticut on May 28th. And this is only the fourth ship named for the state of Oregon, but it's the first submarine that's ever been named after Oregon. And you can actually live stream this on May 28th at 8 a.m. in the morning on ussoregon.org. So if you're interested in seeing a submarine named the Oregon Commission, you can do that on this Saturday. That's all I have. I'll turn it over to the county manager.
Thank you, Chair Quayla, members of the board. Not surprisingly, we're still processing ballots. And so we're inching closer to about 40% voter turnout, with the goal of obviously finishing up and certifying before July 11th. So that process is still going smoothly. And as I always do, thank the election staff for all their work. We will have a couple of emergency management director candidates in town on June 3rd, next Friday. They're going to go through some stakeholder meetings and some interviews with different panels. And then hopefully we'll be able to have a new emergency management director join us thereafter. And then I just wanted to note that Monica and I will also be at the Cedar Awards tomorrow night, and looking forward to that as well. Thank you, Chair Quayla.
Thank you, County Manager. We'll move on to our item on the agenda, which is a public hearing. Ordinance number 22-04, Clatson County Code Amendments, Compliance Procedures and Noise Control Standards. And this is the second public hearing on this item on page 77 of the agenda. And our Community Development Director, Gail Henriksen, I think you'll be providing the staff report. Turn over to Gail.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Staff does not really have any updates since our original report that was submitted on May 11th at your first public hearing. The ordinance basically will transfer responsibility for enforcement of the noise ordinance from county code compliance over to the sheriff's office. And then we will be adding a section to detail how code compliance hearings are conducted. And then generally just to update and clarify language, update code citations. Staff is requesting that your board approve Ordinance 2204 and conduct the second reading by title only.
Thank you, Director Henriksen. Do we have any questions at this time? We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
No, there are not.
Okay. I'll open it up just in case there's anyone that might have joined us that would like to speak on this item. Okay, I don't see anyone that's unmuted or raising their hand, so we'll go ahead and move on. We'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'll allow for any discussion from the commission. Do we have any comment from the board? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 22-04 and conduct the second reading by title only.
Second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-04 and conduct the second reading by title only. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now, Alan, is this your duty? Are you going to
Yes, I'm
read?
filling in for Mr. Antley Lyons, and
Okay.
I'll read the ordinance by title only. An ordinance
yours.
amending an ordinance amending sections 1.11, 1.12, 5.12, 8.04, and 8.12 Clatson County Code and creating section 1.14 Code Compliance Hearing Procedures.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rappelier. And that is the only item that we have on our agenda this evening, but we do have an executive session. So I want to let everybody know that the Clatson County Board of Commissioners will now be meeting in executive session. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660, subset 2, subset E, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room or the virtual room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in the executive session. At the end of the executive session, the Board of Commissioners will adjourn. And it looks like we're all good. So I will turn it over to our county manager.
Thank you, Chair Coelho, members of the board. I'm going to have Monica just give a brief overview. We've had conversations. This is regarding the North Coast Business Park and the proposal that we received. We came to your board in executive session to talk about what the proposal was and what we might want in terms of some accommodation